Hello everyone, this is Spooky Shimmer. Welcome to the SRP program, where my challenge for myself is to eventually successfully make a mission to the moon using nothing but SRBs. Now, this first mission is literally just a automated command module with some instrumentation connected to an SRB that can land with tons of parachutes. This first mission goes off without a hitch, and as I felt it should, because honestly, had this resulted in a failure, I feel like there's no way I would have ever had any success with this entirety of a mission. Alright. Literally, the rest of this mission is literally just what you would expect. Though, what I did learn is that these things are bottom heavy, especially when it's one stage. So I did consider this accordingly and designed future ones with this in mind. Not that there was really all that much you can do when dealing with that. The rest of this mission is literally me trying to see if I can flip it back over, because since there were landing legs on this first rendition of the craft, there we go. But yeah, since there were landing legs on this craft, it would have made sense to have it bottom, down, so that it wouldn't, destroy the ship upon impact. And then in my mind, I'm going, wow, that's a lot of parachutes. But every single one of these parachutes were necessary in order to land a craft of this sort. In these final moments, old me is looking closely at the orientation, making sure that everything is lined up like it should be. But besides that, really all you can do is, one, hope that all the parachutes open without any problems, and two, hope that when it lands it doesn't tip over and blow up, because that would be considered a mission failure. Now, as you already saw in the very beginning of this, was that this was a success. So honestly, there's no suspense here. Like, I made sure there was no suspense in this. Like, honestly, this is just a cool little display of progress in a rocket program based on SRBs, and that's really all it really was to begin with. As the SRB is preparing for final landing, I began to notice how horrifyingly close the SRB was landing to the launch site, and I was afraid that if it was close enough that any future launches would be obstructed by it. Though relatively quickly from this moment, I began to realize that we were just far enough outside of the launch area that it really didn't make a difference either way. But, that is the key issue when thinking about what's going on here, is that At first, I was afraid that this first mission wouldn't go as according to plan. But now that I think back on it, had it not, it would have been the perfect opportunity to just mothball the entirety of the program as wasteful. Right there would be a successful touchdown. And now we watch as the sun sets on the SRB-1. What a beautiful sunset. Alright, SRB-2. Yeah, there were some problems here with the SRB-2. It launched nice. It didn't blow up on the pad, which I guess you wouldn't expect from a solid rocket booster. But, I mean, things happen. But relatively quickly, this mission goes south. Like, very few seconds in. We start to go for a slight gravity turn due to the fact that the first stage is expended. And when the first stage is supposed to separate and parachute, some of the second stage has an issue where the parachutes go off also, which is a very big problem when you're about to launch your second stage. I didn't even bother to launch that second stage because it was already ruined with it. Alright, SRB-3. This was a successful test flight. Really, all it was trying to do is launch what the SRB-2 was, but with correct staging. Now, I just wanted to know what that launch would have looked like and what could be learned based on the rocket as it was at the previous iteration, had everything gone completely according to plan. So at this point in the flight, the first stage successfully separating and the second stage successfully firing, I was pretty sure that victory here was completely assured, and I don't think I was that disappointed in it, because, to be honest, like, everything to this point had been a 100% success, and really there was no reason to believe at this point that anything would go wrong. And considering the parachute issue had been resolved, I was 100% right. Everything went swimmingly and perfectly on this test flight. Just watch this separation right here. And I love how it just sort of slides away and has to line back up with the retrograde. And then we watch as the chutes deploy. And now here we are at the landing, where I skipped ahead because nothing really happened in that period, and it's basically like every other landing. Nothing went wrong, and I just wanted to show the actual landing, because this is where I began to realize that for this type of vehicle it would be better to actually land in water, because a landing on land is extremely dangerous. And that is the problem when designing this vehicle, because I was trying to keep it as compact as possible using SRBs, because I know that weight at the end of the day is going to be a big issue when launching these things, and that's why every single one of these thus far have been completely automated because we don't want the added weight messing with the SRBs. But I mean, ooh, it looks like we hit a lag spike where absolutely nothing happens, due to the fact that for some reason landing this is taxing, even though there's nothing extra going on. It's just kind of descending at a really slow pace. So yeah, sorry about the lag spike, but just letting you know, the mission 100% succeeded. So SRB 4 launch was a very problematic launch. It wasn't just a failure because of the final stage not having enough chutes. There were several issues. For one, with the SRB4, we noticed a key issue where we had trouble with control on these crafts. It was the first model to have this major issue because we were trying to be ambitious with this one. We made slight changes that made it a more powerful rocket, but also we didn't put enough chutes on the final stage. But if you notice right here, the parachutes failed to open on the first stage, which means the first stage crashed into the ground with absolutely no recovery option, which was the first sign of disaster in this particular landing. But it only got worse the farther we got, because we started to lose a little bit of control with our very shallow angle of ascent. We found ourselves having some issues with heat and with control. And with the cameras, I'm inspecting the rocket to make sure that nothing has exploded yet. Right, and right there we lost 2 of the fins, and we have just jettisoned the second stage, because at that point we were just kind of in an issue. Now I struggled to get control of the craft as it was spinning, even though the heat shield should be first. So there we go. Everything is lined up now. But this is about where the mission went south. Right about here. So it looked like everything was going perfect. Like all the chutes deployed and everything was going great. Like I was planning on everything working, and unfortunately it didn't. I had a feeling it wouldn't, though, because it seemed like I was going too fast at the time. So I had withdrawn all the solar panels that I previously had out, turned off the lights, and kind of braced for an impact that I didn't know whether or not the craft would survive. Now, I will say this. This was the first mission failure that involved a unscheduled rapid disassembly, where the craft did not survive the encounter. A catastrophic failure, if you will. Alright. So welcome to SRB 5. This was a big one. This was the very first in the SRB program to make it 100% into space. It did not achieve an orbit, but it did make its way into space. And it is also the last of this video. because we cannot possibly include every single mission that we did in the SRB program. Alright, so we have skipped ahead to right as we got into space, which is relatively soon. Like, by relatively soon, I mean like right about here. Yeah, right there. So yeah, it's the very first time that this whole mission to get into space, well, it's to get to the moon, but you have to go to space first. And that's pretty much all this mission did, was open up the solar panels, send a signal to the Kerbal Space Center, and pretty much went to the top and then back down. That's really all it did. It just sort of served as a temporary communications satellite with Kerbin until it deorbited relatively quickly. Now we're going to show the descent. As you can see, I withdrew the solar panels because I wasn't sure on whether or not this mission would succeed or not. We did come at a relatively high speed back down to Kerbin. But I mean, besides that, like, there was only some question in my mind about whether or not the communications relays would survive re-entry, but that was quickly answered because of how fast we were going. And now the landing was also something I worried about, because the dishes or the solar panels could easily get damaged on descent. Now, besides that, there's really not much more to discuss besides this was a highly successful first 5 flights, with a few bumps and bruises along the way, but they were all learning experiences. But until the next time, thank you guys for watching. Love you. Bye.